constellations. So in constellations work, we're working with the relational field, and so we're tuning into us in relation. So that's in relation to anything, because of course all that we are is relation, and we are bringing the implicit energies that live in our energy systems and in our bodies of the relational system into the explicit through a constellation process. And so what that looks like is whatever it is that you're working with inside yourself, whatever patterns or imprints are emerging, or whatever the intention is that's arising in your life, we can invite that to be represented in a ritual, in a process relationally. And what we do is we invite different aspects of the energy involved, or the constellation of energies that is relating around this particular intention, to be represented by different people in the circle. And each person then who is representing ends up just representing one aspect of the constellation. So they end up embodying that part of the constellation and tuning into that energy. And what happens is when we have someone who's not a part of our field tuning in and only tuning into this one part of the constellation, more information can emerge. There's a revealing of what's underneath: emotions, physiology, stories, images. And as each person in the constellation senses and feels into the field and shares and speaks this information and moves the energy through their body, it invites the whole constellation to move. It invites healing in the whole field. And we get to watch really magically the way that when something moves here, then something moves here, and then it opens up something here, and we get to watch this constellation of relationship. It doesn't just mean with people, it can also be with energies. It could be with money, it could be with Mother Earth. We could do some beautiful collective constellations. We can work with the divine union of the masculine and feminine. We could work with the healing of the masculine. There's so many different ways this can go. And then we also can very specifically look at like your ancestry. We can very specifically look at your family field. We can look at your relationship with the land. Maybe you're calling in a new home, or maybe you're calling in certain things you want to manifest. We can work with that. And there's sort of two ways that constellations help the healing. One way is we're actually holding space for what's unseen and what's unnamed in the field, and for that to be seen and felt and heard. And then on another level, we're actually supporting the movement of the energy in the field. So when we think of what gets stuck relationally, ancestrally, in the collective, there's layers of freeze and shut down. And what we want to do is we want to slow down, make space in the field for these layers of freeze and shut down and stuck energy to be able to move, so that the whole field can start to move. And you know, Francesca Boring, who's one of my teachers in this, she speaks to, when we do constellation work, the act of it is very generous, because even though we're working with our own material, it's actually very collective, and we're actually showing up for collective healing. And every constellation that we do spreads and dissipates and moves in all of our fields, because so many of the patterns and imprints are collective and are things that we are all unraveling in different ways. So it's a very generous act when we get to move the energies and learn together and create new ways, create new pathways. What is the new way? What happens when we have more love and more synchrony and more harmony in our family systems, in our group systems, in our relationship with the ecosystems of our lives? And how do we go slow and bring awareness so that we can watch that unfold? And then what I have been loving about doing the constellation work with Robin, doing her continuum work, is continuum is where we'll kind of do this ebb into like the relationalness of the constellations, and then the continuum work of landing in deeply in our bodies and in our biology, and in the ecosystem within us, that is the pathway through which we connect with everything, is we get to really dive deep into our personal embodiment of these ecosystems. We get to dive really deep into our personal essence and into our cells, and allow through sound and movement and breath for repatterning to happen on an individual level. Of course, the neat thing is, as we journey inward to that individual level and we connect deeply with our essence, then what happens is that is through which we are connected. So it's sort of this, like, there is no end or beginning to self and the relationalness, but there is this dance. And it's a really beautiful dance to dance between these two practices. And I think what you're going to notice is a real deepening with your personal relationship with yourself. So your personal relationship with your sense of self, your sense of essence, your sense of being really embodied in that. And then that coming into the relational space, you being more anchored in yourself and having a felt sense of how to move with other people, how to move in these constellations of our lives from our center, from our essence, from our ever-evolving aliveness, and then relating within these systems of ever-evolving aliveness. And it's very much a model or a map of how to be in our lives. And we get to practice it in the retreat setting. We get to practice this dance together and in our own personal process. And so what will be really beautiful too is we're going to be eating together and spending essentially it's 2 nights and 3 days, although we start on a Friday around 4. And so we'll be able to really thicken and widen the healing through this container of spending this time together and really witnessing each other on many levels, and really allowing you to dance the dance of how much you need to be in your own process and how much it's helpful to be in the group dance of sharing and reflecting back and being witnessed. So in a way, the whole retreat is a constellation and an inner deep continuum experience of yourself in relation, yourself on this planet, yourself just after this time of solstice as we're starting to very slowly move into the light. So this is a little bit of what you can expect and tune into, and feel free to reach out with any questions.